This is hopefully the only goldfish stocking guide you'll ever need. So this is a goldfish stocking guide. If you're like me when I was just starting out, I would have asked, what does a stocking guide mean? Well, basically, a stocking guide for goldfish means we're talking about how many goldfish you can have in what size tank for them to have a good life. Now, you've probably heard some rules before, like one goldfish for 20 gallons of water, or a similar one, this many inches of fish for this many gallons. And those rules can definitely be helpful because once you gain some experience, you realize those rules are kind of meant to be bent and broken. Not that the quality of care goes down for the fish, but it just changes. Changes how? Well, that's what we're talking about. And there are two main things we're going to consider: swimming space and how often you want to maintenance or do water changes. Because really everything kind of falls under the umbrella of that. When the swimming space is good and your maintenance schedule is good, the goldfish can have a good life. But let's take one at a time. We'll start with swimming space. It's hard to describe what enough swimming space looks like, but you know it when you see it. Is the fish traveling the length of the tank back and forth very easily? It's wishing it could swim further. If there's multiple fish in the tank, are they bumping into each other a lot? Is there a large decor in the tank taking up a lot of swimming space? You also have to reevaluate as the fish grows, right? Because in a tank, a small fish is going to have a lot easier time swimming around, but when the fish gets longer and wider, maybe it has trouble turning around if the tank's too skinny. So, for swimming space, when you're picking the goldfish you want, there are two main types to consider: single-tail goldfish and double-tail goldfish. Single-tail goldfish are faster swimmers and generally grow larger because they're less inbred. Because of this, single-tail goldfish usually need more swimming space, larger tanks. And because of that, single-tail goldfish are usually best suited for ponds or very large tanks. Now, double-tail goldfish usually swim a little slower and don't grow quite as large and quite as fast as single-tails. I usually recommend double-tail varieties because they're generally easier and take up less space for a tank in your house. Now, I'm gonna say it again, I know I mentioned it a second ago, but they grow. So the amount of swimming space will change from when they're small to when they're larger. So you can plan ahead by getting the largest tank possible right from the start, or you can upgrade the tank as the fish grows, depending on its swimming needs. The second main thing to consider is how often you want to maintenance or do water changes. Now, I'm gonna assume that you know how to use a freshwater test kit, because that's a different subject. So if you don't, go figure that out first and come back here. How often do you want to do a water change? Because that ends up being the main thing a lot of times. Let's say you have one fancy goldfish in a large tank. And let's say you want to do a water change when your nitrates reach 30 ppm, which is a good rule of thumb. That's usually when I do a water change. So you need to find out how many days it takes to reach 30 ppm. So what you'll do is you do a 90% water change and then test the nitrates daily as they rise. Let's say your nitrates reach 30 ppm on the 10th day. Now you know that you can do a water change every 10 days. But now let's say you have a big tank and you like doing water changes, you don't mind it, and you have a lot of free time. Let's say you put 10 smaller goldfish in this large tank. They have enough swimming room, but the nitrates will reach 30 ppm on the third day, a lot quicker. So do you see how this works? How many goldfish you want to keep depends on how often you want to do a water change. If you want an easy tank, get less fish. If you like work, you can get more fish. Now remember, if you get any new fish, change your feeding schedule, add new plants, or take new plants away from the tank, you'll have to redo that calculation for how many days you can go without a water change. A good example of how swimming space and how often you want to do a water change combats the rules of like one fish for 20 gallons is when you're breeding goldfish, because you might have a rather small tank with maybe 100 baby goldfish in it. They have enough swimming space in that water, but they're eating and pooping a lot. So you end up changing the water every single day. And you can keep it up like that for quite a while before they get large enough where, oh, they might need some more swimming room. They're not getting neglected just because there's 100 in a small tank. They're getting fresh water and they have enough room at that point in time. Now there is an extra thing to mention. You may know that goldfish sometimes secrete hormones and pheromones that make them stop growing if they feel like the tank is overcrowded. But as long as you do a water change when your nitrates reach 30-ish ppm, you really shouldn't have to worry about the hormone side of things. Now, if you're going for a no water change planted goldfish tank, it might be something to consider, but that is such a hard endeavor on its own that you can probably figure it out. So to recap, how many fish can you buy for your tank? Well, it really depends. Does the fish have enough swimming room? And how often do you want to do a water change? If you don't like doing maintenance, doing water changes, let's say you get one goldfish in a 40-gallon, you can pretty much keep that one in there its whole life and have really low maintenance. But if you like work, you can get yourself a 60-gallon, put 5 puppies in there, and do your twice weekly water changes. So get what you can keep up with. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you learned something maybe. Don't forget I have a partnership with JY Aquarium, so if you want to buy anything on their website, use the code WCG at checkout and you'll get a little discount. I also have an Amazon list of some of my favorite fish keeping items, so I think that's on my TikTok and Instagram bios, so check that out if you want. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you didn't already, I guess.